Welcome to English Practice Stories, where you learn English by listening to real-life heroes who change the world. Two brothers stood on a hill, watching birds. They had no college degrees. They had very little money. They were just two quiet boys from a small town. But they had a dream that everyone said was impossible. They looked at the birds soaring in the sky and they thought, "We can do that." They wanted to fly. This is the true story of Wilbur and Orville Wright. They were born in America in the late 1800s. Wilbur was the older brother and Orville was the younger one. They were best friends. Their father was a church leader who traveled a lot. Their mother, Susan, was a quiet woman who was wonderful with her hands. She could build anything. She built toys for her children. She fixed things in the house. From their mother, the boys learned that if you can think it, you can build it. One day, their father came home from a trip. He brought them a small gift. It was a toy helicopter. It was made of paper, bamboo, and rubber bands. He tossed it into the air and it flew up to the ceiling. The boys were amazed. It looked like magic. They played with it until it broke. Then they built their own. Theirs was even bigger. That little toy planted a big seed in their hearts. It was the seed of flying. As they grew up, they were always working together. When Wilbur was a teenager, he had a sad accident. He was playing ice hockey and a bat hit him in the face. He got very sick. For a long time, he stayed home. He felt sad and lost. Orville, his loving brother, wanted to help. Orville had started a small printing business. He said, "Wilbur, come work with me." Together, they built their own printing press. They made it from wood and old metal parts. It worked perfectly. This showed their early genius, which means they were naturally very, very smart. Soon, the world changed. A new machine was popular, the bicycle. Everyone wanted to ride a bicycle. So Wilbur and Orville opened a bicycle shop. This shop was not just a store. It was their university. They didn't just fix bikes. They built their own bikes. Working with bicycles, they learned everything about balance. They learned about chains, gears, and how to build strong, light frames. They did not know it yet, but this knowledge was preparing them for their big dream. One day, they read sad news in the newspaper. A famous German flyer named Otto Lilienthal had died. Lilienthal was their hero. He built gliders, airplanes with no engine, and flew them from hills. But his glider crashed and he died. This news made the brothers very serious. Flying was not just a fun dream. It was a dangerous, difficult problem, and they decided they were going to solve it. They started reading every book they could find about flying. They wrote a letter to the Smithsonian Institution, a famous museum. They asked, "Please send us all the papers you have about flight." They studied how birds flew. This is when they found the big secret. They watched birds turn in the air. How did they do it? They saw that a bird twists the ends of its wings. They called this idea wing warping. This was their big idea. Other people were focused on engines. The Wright brothers knew the real problem was control. How do you steer in the air? You must be able to twist the wings. To test this idea, they built a big kite. It looked like a small biplane. It had two wings, one on top of the other. They flew it with 4 ropes. By pulling the ropes, they could twist the wings. And it worked. They could control the kite as it flew. Their idea was right. Now, they needed a place to test a real glider. They needed a place with strong, steady wind. They also needed a place with soft sand for landing and crashing. And they wanted a remote place, far away from cities, so no one would bother them. They found the perfect spot, a tiny, windy village on the coast called Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. In the year 1900, they traveled to Kitty Hawk. Life was very hard. They lived in a tent. There were millions of mosquitoes. The wind was so strong it almost blew their tent away. They built their first glider. They tried to fly it. It was okay. It didn't lift as much as the books said it would. They were confused. The science books might be wrong. They went home to Ohio, feeling a little disappointed but ready to try again. The next year, 1901, they came back with a new, bigger glider. This one was a disaster. It did not fly well. It would suddenly dive to the ground. It was very dangerous. Wilbur was heartbroken. He told Orville, "Humans will not fly for 1,000 years." He was ready to give up. What would you do if you were in his place? After all that work, everything was failing, but Orville did not want to quit. He said, "Wilbur, the books are wrong. The numbers are wrong. We have to test it ourselves." So, They went back to their bicycle shop, and they built one of their most important inventions. It was a wind tunnel. It was just a long wooden box with a fan at one end, but inside this box, they tested over 200 different tiny wing shapes. They were looking for the perfect shape for a wing, and they found it. They discovered the true science of flying. The books were wrong, and they were right. In 1902, they returned to Kitty Hawk with their third glider. This one was built with their own numbers, and it worked. It worked perfectly. They made over 700 flights. They glided hundreds of feet. They could turn. They could balance. They had solved the problem of control. They were the first true pilots in the world, even before they had an engine. Now, they needed one last thing: power. They needed an engine. They wrote to many big car companies. They asked, "Can you build us an engine? It must be very light but very powerful." Every company said no. That's impossible. An engine light enough to fly? It can't be done. Wilbur and Orville just looked at each other. They said, "Then we will build it ourselves." They went back to their shop. With their mechanic, Charlie Taylor, they designed and built their own engine in just 6 weeks. It was light. It was powerful. It was perfect. They also had to invent the propeller. No one knew how to make an airplane propeller. They had another brilliant idea. A propeller is just a wing that spins. They designed the first modern propellers. In the cold winter of 1903, they returned to Kitty Hawk. They put everything together. The wings from the wind tunnel, the engine from their shop, the propellers from their brilliant minds. They called it the Flyer. It was a strange-looking machine of wood, cloth, and wire. They had many problems. The weather was bad. Parts kept breaking. They had to wait. They showed great perseverance, which means they never stopped trying, even when it was very hard. On December 14th, they were ready. They tossed a coin. Wilbur won. He was so excited. He climbed onto the machine, but he pulled up too fast. The Flyer stalled and crashed into the sand. Wilbur was not hurt, but the machine was damaged. It took 3 days to repair it. Wilbur felt terrible. Then came December 17th, 1903. It was a freezing cold day. The wind was strong. Only 5 people were there to watch. No big crowds. No reporters. This time it was Orville's turn. He lay down on the bottom wing. The engine roared to life. Wilbur ran beside the wing, holding it steady. The machine moved down its little wooden track. Faster, faster. And then it happened. A space opened between the machine and the sand. It was in the air. Orville was flying. It was not a smooth flight. The machine went up and down, but Orville was steering it. He was in control. He flew for 12 seconds. He landed 120 feet away. It was not a long flight, but it was the first time in history that a human flew a powered, controlled machine. Can you imagine how they felt at that moment? They had done the impossible. They were so excited. They flew 3 more times that day. They took turns. The last flight was the best. Wilbur flew. He stayed in the air for 59 seconds. He flew 852 feet. They had really done it. After the last flight, a big gust of wind grabbed the Flyer. It flipped over and broke. But it didn't matter. They walked to the local telegraph office. They sent a message to their father. It said, "Success. 4 flights Thursday morning. Home for Christmas." The world did not believe them at first. The newspapers said it was a hoax. But the brothers knew the truth. They went back home to their bicycle shop and kept working. They built better planes. Soon the whole world knew. 2 quiet boys, with no college and little money, had opened the sky to all of humanity. They taught us all how to fly. The moral of the story. The story of the Wright brothers teaches us that your background does not decide your future. Your curiosity and your hard work do. No dream is too big if you are brave enough to ask why, and smart enough to learn from your failures. Mini English. Quiz test your understanding with these 3 simple questions. What did Wilbur and Orville Wright invent? What was their job before they built the airplane? 3. What does the word perseverance mean? Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Learn English with Stories, where learning English becomes a journey of inspiration.